I don't know how to introduce my next guest here today. We're talking about ancient civilization, aliens. You think Jesus was an alien?
I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. Biblical text, also with the Torah, the Quran, why are they saying the same identical things as the ancient tablets? We keep slapping our ancient ancestors in the face, doubting their wisdom and doubting their understanding of what really happened when they left the proof and the evidence right for us. As a matter of fact, the thing that brought down the UFO, the famous UFO from 1947 in New Mexico, most likely engineered or reverse engineered from Nikola Tesla's documents. Everything that's been done has already been done before. To have so many moving pieces, you have to be a real mastermind, and they are. The ultimate order came from George Bush Sr. They are creating a breakaway civilization on Mars. In these anomalies, these are out-of-place objects, things that shouldn't be where they are. The most anomalies appear on Mars. I realized one thing. This is what's changed my whole life.
If there's ever been an interview that you're going to go on a roller coaster ride, 1 minute we're talking about Jesus maybe an alien, another minute we're talking about Eisenhower, the secret meeting he had while he's on vacation to step out and go meet with a couple aliens to negotiate on behalf of the country that we're going to give up our nuclear weapons because you're going to give back to us on some incredible technology that you have. And then what Eisenhower's daughter revealed to Billy Carson at an event that he shared for the first time on the podcast here today, to us having conversations about why Hitler was so interested in Antarctica and how Buzz Aldrin went there, came back, he tweeted something about it, was forced to take it down a day later, and then a couple other stories about Nikola Tesla and Donald Trump's father's brother, who the FBI approached to say, hey, do you think there's any kind of risks if this information that Nikola Tesla has? Bunch of debates over faith, God's existence, Satan, evil, aliens, Machu Picchu. You're going to listen to a lot of these stories and you're going to say, I don't know if I believe him or not. You're going to have a percentage. You're going to say, I think I believe 90% of what he has to say. You may say, I believe 30% of what he has to say. But there's one thing you're not going to say. You are not going to say this was not an interesting person to listen to. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed listening to his level of certainty. He even said, I'm not sure if I'm right about everything I'm saying, but you're going to listen to him and you're going to say, this guy fully believes in what he has to say. With that being said, enjoy Billy Carson.
30 seconds. Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving value's contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
I mean, listen, I don't know how to introduce my next guest here today. For those of you that like business or politics or finance or any of that stuff, we're not talking any of that stuff today. Today we're talking about, ancient civilization. We're talking about, the Anunnakis. We're talking about aliens. We're talking about how much of this stuff is true. We're talking to Billy Carson. If you don't know who he is, just go search him on YouTube. He's been on a bunch of different shows all over the place. Rogan, Flagrant with Andrew Schultz, everywhere. And he's got a YouTube channel as well, over 1 million subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, right? Forbidden Knowledge. With that being said, Billy, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I got a lot of questions for you, but opening, why are you so interested in these topics? Like, what happened to you to say, I want to learn about aliens and all these strange stories, and some may say conspiracies?
Yeah. Well, it started for me back in 1977. I was in my backyard in Miami, Florida. And I was watching the airplanes go over from the Opelika Airport, very small private airport, well-known airport there. It's actually been refurbished recently, and it's a really nice airport. But even as a 7-year-old kid looking up at the sky, seeing the planes go over, knowing that they appeared to be moving slow, but realizing they had to be moving pretty fast to keep their ability to stay up in the air, this one day, this object flew across my backyard, and it wasn't an airplane. Even as a kid, I knew no tail, no wings, no cockpit. What is this thing? And it cleared the horizon in seconds, not minutes. It went straight across. Then it came back and it stopped, completely silent. It was a little bit more elongated than an egg, but shorter than a cigar, glowing metal. And then it just just took off. I mean, disappeared instantly. I ran in the house. I told my mom. I was running around the house screaming, I can't believe what I just saw. And that's why my mother said to me, and this is 77, she said, son, there were advanced beings on this earth in the ancient past, and they used to have places that they lived on top of mountains. She said, you have to go and check out Machu Picchu in Peru.
Yep.
And that was in 77, which is why I dedicated this book, and I made a statement about that in this book to my mother, because she's the one who originally put that in my mind. She didn't say aliens, but she said advanced beings. She said, everything that's been done has already been done before.
Everything's has been done before. So at this point, you're 6 years old, right?
7.
7 years old. Okay. And your mom, what did your mom do for a living to tell you what she told you?
My mom was a housewife and delivered newspapers from time to time with my dad. They were delivery newspaper people.
What was she interested in?
She was interested in mechanics. She was a mechanic, believe it or not, just a self-taught mechanic. She would go out. We had this extra junk car in the house, and she would take the car apart, break the engine down, and give it a head job, not the bad head job, but the real mechanical head job, put it back together, and then crank it up. And then when my dad was a shade tree mechanic to make money on the side, and every time he got, stumbled with what to fix or how to fix a situation or a problem with a car, she would come out, diagnose it, and tell him exactly what to do to fix it. She was kind of a genius in mechanics.
If we lined up 1,000 mothers, okay, whose 7-year-old son would run in saying, Mom, I just saw this, I think only one of them would probably say, everything that you're seeing now has been done before. There's ancient civilization. Go to Machu Picchu. Yeah. Why did she say that? Did she read certain things? Was she somebody that followed certain stories? Where was her mind at? Did she have someone that influenced her? What caused her to say that?
Well, you got to remember, this is pre-internet, pre-cable TV.
That's why I'm asking.
Pre-cell phone, pre-everything.
Right.
No influence of Nickelodeon on TV, no alien shows really at that time, except for probably Star Wars was probably out by then. But when my aunt died in about 5 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, my aunt died, who was her close sister. She talked to me when she was on her deathbed, dying in England from cancer. A tumor underneath her arm had spread. And she told me, there's something I got to tell you before I pass away, that your mother and I were engaged by some advanced beings when we were little kids in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and we lost time, and they took us away, and then they brought us back. And I was blown away. And she died 2 days later.
She died 2 days after she told you this?
Yeah.
How old were you at the time?
That was, I was probably 47.
So how long have you known about
48.
this? How long had you known about this?
I just found out. That was the first time I heard about it.
So that's the first time she ever told you this?
Yeah.
Did your mom ever tell you these?
My mom never told me.
Never told you this?
Yeah.
So is your mom still around? Is your mom still alive?
She's gone.
She's not? Okay. Sorry to hear.
Yeah.
And so go back. So if you're, generally, when I meet somebody that has a lot of interest in something, and I go meet the parents, I'm like, okay, I get it. This guy loves the Yankees. His father's a diehard Yankees guy. This guy loves the rockets. His father was a rocket scientist. Yeah. This guy is a businessman. His father was a commercial real estate guy. That guy's, you can kind of see a trend. So I see something with you that's with mom. So if at nighttime you're sitting there talking with your mom, you're having dinner at night, what do conversations sound like? Is she talking aliens?
No.
Is she talking technology?
No, just mechanics.
But why would she say to you that anything that you see now has been done before and you have to go to Machu Picchu? Why would she say about Machu Picchu, Peru?
No, it burned in my mind for decades, and when I finally got a chance, I went. I started my world traveling. I've been around the world now 38 times around this planet. But that was one of the places I knew I had to get to, and I finally got there, and that's why I dedicated the book to my mom.
You've been around the world 38 times?
Yeah, 38
times.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So you go to Machu Picchu, and what experiences do you have at Machu Picchu? Do you go from the bottom where you're trying to coca leaves and work your way all the way up? You stay at the hotel, you're not the hotel, whatever those areas you're calling. Yeah. Did you have any kind of unique experience when you were up there?
No unique experience. I mean, I got there, right at the airport, they want to give you the coca leaves as soon as you land.
Immediately. Here, they give it to you in Miami when you land. Over there, it's a different kind. That's right. It's not the leaves here, though.
So I didn't take the leaves, just because my father was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And so I'm always fearful of any type of addictive personality that may be embedded in me. So anything that could be possibly.
Have you ever done drugs?
Never done drugs.
You've never done drugs?
Never smoked marijuana. I drank 2 beers when I was 17, got sick for 3 days, never drank again. I'm 52 going on 53 now. I'll be 53 in September.
Have you ever done ayahuasca? Have you ever done any of these psychedelics?
No ayahuasca, no mushrooms.
Nothing.
Zero.
Okay, so it's not like you had these moments because you were on something.
Yeah.
That's very important to qualify that. Okay. Yeah. All right, so you go to Machu Picchu, just a regular trip, nothing crazy happens, you come back. It's just, did you say, why did my mom tell me to go to Machu Picchu? Nothing really happened here.
I'm researching the structures, you know. So as you go to Machu Picchu and the surrounding region, Ollantaytambo, Sacsayhuaman, and all these other places, you begin to see megalithic stones.
Can you pull up the pictures? Because it's one of the most beautiful, lost cities in the world. On the list of lost cities, I think it's number one. And maybe Grande Jaguar in Tikal in Guatemala is one of them. There's a few of them, but this is one. Just go to images, Rob. It's beautiful.
Tikal is amazing.
Tikal is amazing, yes.
And so Machu Picchu struck me because, first of all, it's a very arid place. When you talk about the ability to build an entire sustainable civilization that high up, 11, 12,000 feet above sea level, lack of oxygen, to be able to learn how to build those plateaus and cultivate quinoa, but you also need other food as well. It's just very hard living if you don't really understand what you're doing or how to work the land properly. These people had learned and mastered how to work the land in this very dry, arid place. And what's interesting is a lot of those mountains that are surrounding Machu Picchu, when you're there in person, you begin to look at them, you begin to see that way high up, there's carvings in the sides of the mountains' faces that have been carved. The locals say that these are the beings that came down from the heavens that helped build this fortress. All right, so that's pretty amazing. There's a lot of faces carved all throughout the area. And then, at Ollantaytambo, when you look at the gigantic stones, you find out that they were from another mountain. And to get to that other mountain, you have to travel about close to, because you have to, travail the land. You're talking about almost 300, 400 miles, depending on the angle you take to get there, to get to the quarry. And now that's brought back and built on a mountain fortress on the other side. How did they get them harvested out of the mountain? How did they bring them down the mountain? How did they bring them up to the top of another mountain and build them in an interlocking way where the stones are all individually made to fit together, interlocking with no mortar, and they're also earthquake-proof. That's crazy technology.
Did you come up with a conclusion? Is there anything that the locals believe in? Is there anything you saw with scientists or others who study these kinds of archaeologists to say this is what they found?
The homegrown guides and the homegrown archaeologists that aren't afraid to talk say that these fortresses were built in a day and a night by the beings that came from heaven.
That's what they say.
That's what they say, yeah.
What do traditional scientists from big universities say?
They say that, they're not really sure how they were to do it. Maybe they took trees and rolled them on, stones and rolled on tree logs. They really don't have a good opinion on exactly how it was done. They just don't, of course, they don't go towards any people outside of this planet or any additional help or any construction techniques that would have been given to humankind or mankind. They just try to say, well, we're not really sure how it was done, but it was probably humans.
So, okay, so that's interesting. When it comes down to the pyramid in Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. And you hear about different stories that's coming out with the pyramid and, how did they build this? If we can build something like this, what year was the pyramid built? If you can look up the year it was built, what is the year, Rob? Can you see what the year is? Oldest, 2,000 years ago?
The Great Pyramid? Well, they're going to tell you between 2,500 or so, BC.
BC.
But it's much older than that.
Okay. So you think it's how long?
At least 36,000 years.
At least 36,000.
Yeah.
So to have that kind of advanced technology to lift these stones, mm-hmm. Rob, see how much these things weigh. Did the people lift these? Did they have technologies? Did they levitate? Did they use zero-point energy? What did they use to be able to lift these massive stones?
With the Great Pyramid, you're talking about over 2 million stones. And people think that they're cookie cutter stones that were created. And they come up with a lot of different theories of a mud ramp. But the mud ramp theory, you would need more mud than the mass of the pyramid itself to do a mud ramp. Didn't work that way. Rolling on tree logs, again, a farce. Each stone is individually cut to fit specifically in the location that it's at. So each one of those stones on the Great Pyramid, although they look from a distance or from a photo on Google almost identical, when you're standing there like I was, you can see that each stone is an interlocking stone made specifically for the exact location it was dropped into, which means that you can't have a cookie cutter system where you create 2 million stones and just start dropping them into place every few minutes. You literally have to absolutely create each stone specifically for the location it needs to be in. Imagine getting a stone halfway up that structure and then finding out you didn't cut it right or it doesn't fit properly. The waste of resources, the waste of energy, the waste of time. These people built the Great Pyramid because they knew exactly what they were doing. They had done this before, and they had the blueprint on exactly how it was to be accomplished. They had foreknowledge that would be successful.
How do you know that?
Well, you can't, you're talking about thousands of years ago, resources are key. Resources are very important. You can't take up the resources of an entire civilization to build something on a guess or a whim, right? If you look at Angkor Wat, Cambodia, the moat around Angkor Wat is about 13 to 14 feet deep. The mass of mud removed to create that man-made moat around Angkor Wat is more mass than the Great Pyramid. You can't do these kind of feats of incredible technological, triumphs without knowing in advance it's going to work. You have to have it where it's filtering water from the mountain. You have to understand how to create. Then they took and made irrigation from it for growing their crops. And it has to also sustain itself within the moat. It's for protection against invaders. So to build that moat, to remove more mass than the Great Pyramid, you have to know exactly what you're doing and also have foreknowledge it's going to work. You can't waste the resources.
So how did they get it? You're saying, because they're saying online it'll say 2500, 2600 BC, right? You're saying 34, 36,000, right? One, how do you know it's 34, 36,000? And based on your research, what are you finding that the way they build this?
Well, when you look into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right, which is why I wrote the book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, he says in some of the opening verses, he said, builded I the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages. He's saying, I built the Great Pyramid. And to give me the key to the time frame, those tablets are around 36 to 38,000 years old. Now, if you look at the fact that his father in Sumerian told him his name in Sumerian was Nigajida to build the Sphinx and put his head on it. The Sphinx's head never had a lion's head on it. It always had a human head, but it was recarved to a smaller head because his brother had taken over kingship and recarved it to his brother's son's head. So that's his nephew's face on there now. But when you look in the Great Sphinx enclosure and you look at the weathering of the stone and the rocks in there, it tells you that there was a major event, probably the Younger Dryas incident, which happened, an impact right above Syria, which would have melted a lot of ice and created a flood pouring down into that region. Now, you can tell how many thousands of years the water took to drop inside the Sphinx's enclosure. So that gives you a great idea, based on real, actual, peer-reviewed geology, that this is much older than that. The Sphinx is much, much older than that. And that means that plateau was built around the same time frame. So now all of a sudden you're going, wait a minute, if it's some geologists say, well, at least let's give it 13,000 years. But 13,000 years is when the Younger Dryas incident happened. To get a perfect time to build megalithic structures like a Great Pyramid and a Great Sphinx, you need peace, tranquility, you need time, you need resources. Now, if you go back another precessional period, all of a sudden you're right around the 36,000 time frame, 36,000-year-old time frame, which is around the time that Thoth authored the Emerald Tablets and claimed that he built the Great Pyramid.
Who disagrees with you?
A lot of people disagree, but a lot of people agree.
Who is the most qualified expert, scientist, researcher, archaeologist who agrees with you?
I would say Robert Schoch agrees not on the 36,000 year. He goes back to about 13,000 years. He's pushed the limit. This is a professor at Stanford, I believe. Stanford, yeah. And he's pushed the limit back, Dr. Robert Schoch. He's pushed the limit back to about 13,000 years. His counterpart, Anthony West, who died unfortunately recently, pushes it back to about 36,000 years. But he passed away just a few years ago. Just from, he got old. But they were partners, and they kind of clashed a little bit on it. One went back 13, another one went back. John Anthony West went back about 36,000 years. So he was an archaeologist. His time frame aligned directly with my time frame, based on almost the same exact hypothesis dealing with this impact incident that happened that would have pushed this creation back much further back than what we assume. And also, he did the work, Dr. Robert Schoch, Professor Robert Schoch, did the work on the geology of the Sphinx enclosure, proving it's much older than what they claim in mainstream.
So, obviously, one may watch you, and Billy, when I watch you, I'm like, this guy is boom. Okay, your level of certainty in you, you're very confident in the answers you're given, right? And there are certain people that can communicate that way, that they have the level of confidence, and then one can go do the research and due diligence and say, well, he's full of it, or he's right. Well, I had no clue. He's right about all this other stuff. But there's generally two schools of thought. Okay, one is people who believe the establishment is hiding information from them. Mm-hmm. They believe the establishment doesn't want them to know everything because they think it's not good for them, okay? God forbid if you average human beings, you can't handle this kind of information because you're not at the level of intellectual, knowledge that we have, okay? There's a big community. You can call them anti-establishment. You can call them folks that are curious. You can call them, whatever you want to call them. Then the other side is folks who are part of the $200,000 to $300,000 community. Mm-hmm. They went to the right schools, they paid for a certificate, they follow the rules, and they go to school. And to them, they're the people they look up to are professors with fancy degrees. And if they can't figure this out, who are you?
Right.
Because I asked a couple people about you, and I'm like, listen, this guy, the way he talks, it's very crystal. Yeah. Background. I think you took you went to Harvard for a specific course, if I'm not mistaken. He did something with MIT. Yeah. What background do you have for one to say, no, man, this guy's got a lot of credibility to speak on these topics? What would you say to that?
My biggest background is my passport stamps. That's number one. I mean, traveling around the world, dozens of times to visit with ancient indigenous wisdom keepers, homegrown archaeologists, homegrown guides, going out in the field. It's videos of me at all these ancient sites, me, myself, which is very rare, on my own funding, my own money, no loans, no backers, no sponsors, spending and risking it all to get out there and find out for myself in person, do my own research and put together the pieces of the puzzle. The second thing, obviously just for, I'm an author and, I've authored now 4 books. Epic of Humanity became #1 in encyclopedias at one point on Amazon. And also #1 in Mesopotamian history, #1 in Assyrian history. So there's some credibility. #1 in ancient history at one point. I don't know what it is now, but I bet it's still in the top 10 in all 3 of those categories. So somebody thinks I'm an expert out there. As far as MIT, I took classes to get certified in applied neuroscience, which I did. And then I took classes at Harvard to get a certificate in ancient civilizations. But I put the work in, I put the time in. And like I said, my biggest credibility is my passport. A lot of people talk a lot of stuff, but they don't have any passport stamps.
So passport stamps, meaning you went there, you saw it, you witnessed it, and that is where. Okay, so when you're reading material on this, what is your method of research? What are you reading? What are some things you attack to research a topic like this? Specifically, how wide of a range of topics you study?
Right. Well, if I'm going to go into an ancient civilization, specifically trying to tie things in through the Sumerian culture, because the Sumerian culture has a lot of information and data. Sumerians and also the Egyptians, the pre-dynastic Egyptians, but also the dynastic Egyptians have a lot of information. But when you get into the Sumerian cuneiform tablets and the Sumerian cylinder scrolls, you get access to a lot of information. So I go to the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library. Okay, so say that fast 10 times. So you go in there, you can take actual stones off the virtual shelf, drop them into the translator, and you can then read the translations for yourself. You don't got to rely on this guy, that guy, and all these other people that translated the tablets. You can get the translations yourself, and then you can begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, what's interesting is these stone tablets have been translated, and if some of them have been created in Assyrian, some have been created in Babylonian. You can see over different periods of time, but you can see the similarities between the two stories. And then you can also then make the connection between those Assyrian and Babylonian texts with biblical text, also with the Torah, right? The Old Testament of the Bible, the Quran. So all of a sudden you're seeing that the Quran, the Bible were written much newer, at a much newer time period than these ancient tablets. Why are they saying the same identical things as the ancient tablets? That's the first big question mark you have to ask yourself. So now you have to go back and back convert these languages, Aramaic, Hebrew, and everything else, and you got to begin to look at the origin of these sources for these books, and you realize 90% of it's coming out of ancient tablets that existed for thousands of years, well documented. No need to look that up or Google it because it's an absolute known fact. These tablets are thousands of years old, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 years old, and they're sitting in the British Museum. But like, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh is giving you the full story of Noah's Ark. And you're even given the shape of the ship he built, not the ship dimensions in the Bible. The original dimensions of the boat is a circle, right? It's a disc that he built, not a gigantic boat. The story in the Bible is a little off, but the generalization of the story is coming directly from these ancient tablets. And that's just one example of dozens. And you begin to say, oh man, what happened was people were copying from the tablets onto parchment papers, right? Copying and turning it into what we call scriptures, putting it in these vases inside of these caves where they were studying stuff and trying to hand it down from generation to generation. Over time, people came into these caves, found all these different vases in different areas throughout the region, put those things together and made it into canonized books that we call religious texts.
So what do you think about the Bible?
Well, the Bible has a lot of good information in it. If you can apply some of the information, it can really change your life. It can really put you on the right path. But it also has some information in it that's detrimental to people as well. You have to have discernment with what you're reading in the Bible. In the Bible, where you see the word God everywhere, that's a mistranslation by accident on purpose. The original word is gods with an S. It's always with an S. When you back engineer the actual word, the translations, you find out it's gods, not God singular. Elohim is also a plural term. It's not a singular term. And you also discover that Yahweh is actually Enlil from the Sumerian cuneiform pantheon, from the Sumerian cuneiform text. He's Enlil. It becomes Yahweh in the biblical text. And there's all these correlations between the different ancient characters from the Sumerian text end up in the biblical text. And you find out in the book of Deuteronomy that these gods are fighting each other over resources and people. So if you read, anyone who reads the book of Deuteronomy begins to realize this probably isn't the creator of the universe that wrote this. When God tells people, God is supposed to be all-knowing, all-loving, ain't he the same all the time? Then all of a sudden, you read in the book of Deuteronomy and he's saying, there's one person in this city that doesn't like me. I want you guys to go over there. Now, keep in mind, they've never met these people. Kill the women, kill the children, kill their animals, and bring the spoils of war back to me. Now, what kind of God needs the spoils of war, and what kind of God needs to kill children? There's also a verse in there in the book of Deuteronomy where God tells a man, if you see a woman walking through the land and you decide to rape her, and the word rape is the actual word, look it up, you can. And if after you rape her, if you decide you want to make her your wife, you can keep her as your wife too. Now you have rape and abduction. Now, you're saying to yourself, the creator of the universe, okay, has all power, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient. Why in the world would he write stuff like that or give a man the ability to write stuff like that to put in his book? In some cases, it's not talking about the creator of the universe. We have to be able to discern that. We have to be able to have the eye to see that some of this is manipulation for the power of people to put on top of other people. In the New Testament, Jesus says, honor your slave master. Now, why would we want to honor a slave master? As you would honor me, he says. Do you think Jesus really would say something like that? I don't. I think that his message was pure and clean and clear, and that he was trying to usher back a level of Christ consciousness back in humanity. And that's the return. The second return is when we all reach a level of Christ consciousness. That's when Jesus comes back. He comes back in our minds, not in a physical form. And for people to take his words and skewer it around to make it okay for slavery, I think that's a big thing where we see now the injection of human minds, not the creator of the universe. So you have to be discerning with the biblical text.
Who is Jesus to you? In your eyes, who is Jesus?
His name is Yeshua, okay? Jesus is, first, the J is a recent letter. The J is not that old. So it really was originally Isus, and that name Isus means Hail Zeus, okay? So you're calling on Zeus when you say Jesus, one of the Sumerian people who converted over to the Greek gods. But his name is Yeshua, and so Yeshua to me, very powerful person, very spiritual, high level of knowledge, a student of the Egyptian mysteries. When Jesus disappears from the Bible, he actually ends up in Egypt, okay? You can find this information in a book that was kept out of the biblical text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, he shows up in Egypt, and we know that's a fact because I take people on tour every year to Egypt, and I take them to the house that Jesus lived in. It's a crypt. It's actually worship. People come there to see that bed that he laid in every single year. When I take people there, we take them straight there. And we know the path that he traveled throughout Egypt because it's a huge sign outside that Coptic church where he lived that shows where he went. Now, when he was in Egypt, what did he go there for? To learn the Egyptian mysteries. Who taught the Egyptian mysteries? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, the person I wrote this book about. And so Thoth was the teacher of the Egyptian mysteries, or the ancient mysteries of what it was called. And then he leaves there and he goes to Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki healing, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he heads down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back. Then the Bible picks him up at the age of 32. I call my son out of Egypt. He shows up on the back of a donkey, proclaims himself to be the Messiah. So it's a big story. I think that he had a big message. I don't think people were able to grasp it at the time. But his message was that not that he was coming back, but that the Christ would return, the Christ consciousness.
Where did you get this information? What book did you read that said this? Because this isn't, you didn't come up with this. You read this from somewhere. What did you read that told you this?
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
Another apocrypha text that was, kept out of the canonized Bible.
Got it. And that's what you learned from this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, there's a lot of people that, smart people, mathematicians, a lot of skeptics that are out there as well. How many people agree with what you have to say? How many people agree with this?
Well, I got 8 million people following my accounts across all platforms. I don't know.
So I'm not talking about that part. Of course, when you're talking with this level of firmness, there's a lot of, that's why I'm curious. I'm curious to know, how you come up with your beliefs.
Yeah.
But why is it, if that's what you believe in, more people don't believe in that? Why do you think such a small sect?
When you're born, you're given a name, a race, and a religion,
right.
And you spend the rest of your life defending a false identity. You don't know who you are. I don't know who I am. You were given your name. I was given my name. Who's Billy Carson? I didn't come up with that name. Somebody gave me that name. And then somebody said, get on your knees and pray before you go to bed. Say the Lord's Prayer before you go to bed. And so I got on my knees and I said the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, But then when you trace back that Lord's Prayer, whose prayer is that? That's the prayer of Ptah. Who's Ptah? Ea Enki from the Sumerian tablets. He wrote that prayer in ancient cuneiform, which then made it all the way into the Bible. And you think you're praying to God, you're saying the prayer of Ptah. So we've been brainwashed. We've been programmed because for generations, we keep getting handed down this system where we're given this false creation of who we are, and we believe it wholeheartedly. We'll fight for it to the absolute death. People will die over those things that were given to them, not that they came up with on their own initially or originally. So it's a dangerous thing because we have a lot of people walking around that just took the programming code, and they don't even understand really who they are, what they're all about. That's why so many people don't walk in their passion. So many people don't even know what their passion is because they've been given and told what their passion is going to be, and they have no clue how to find out who they really truly are or what they would love to be involved in or what their passion truly is. So we have a lot of NPCs walking around, non-players out here just walking around, have no clue, just programs in the matrix. But then you have a few of us that have discovered who we are, that are working on trying to go to inner space instead of outer space, dig deep within ourselves, learn how to walk in our power, find out what our passion is, maximize that, and access that power and spread that power throughout the world.
Would you say your parents were Christians?
They were quasi-Christians. So they didn't go to church, but my dad would make me do book reports on the Bible from the time I was a little kid. My mother would make me say the prayers, So that in that way, they were Christians.
When did you stop?
I stopped probably, I say, maybe around 12 or 13. I realized something was too much. There was too much contradiction in the text. Because remember, I'm doing book reports on the biblical text. And when I got to the point where God said, I create the good and I create the evil, do what I say at the Lord. That's in Isaiah. Then I realized something was really off here because I realized through my studies that God had killed over 3 million people in the Bible, and the Satan didn't kill anybody. So I said, wait a minute, something's a little off here. He's killing everybody, and Satan didn't kill anybody. And so we have to really take a look. And the deeper I dug into Deuteronomy, then I realized there's something wrong. What it was at that moment, I couldn't figure out, but I just knew something was a little off. I dabbled in it again later on to see maybe if there was something that I missed. And again, later on in my life, in my late 20s, I said, just doesn't make any sense. There's too many question marks. And every time you ask a question, they say, Don't ask, don't question God, don't question the Lord, blind faith. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to put all of my eternity into one book, if I'm saying this one book is going to lead me to eternity, and I don't know everything about it, every aspect about it, I can't question it, I can't dig deeper to get more knowledge out of it, then I think there's something wrong with that. I think there's something being hidden from me. And I'd rather be able to dig deeper, get more knowledge, get more understanding, versus people shunning me away from trying to dig deeper to get more answers. And I think that's a big problem. And I think the people that are shunning away and stopping you from getting those answers don't have the answers themselves.
When you went through this journey that you're going through, are your parents seeing you go through the self-actualization where you're having your own philosophies? Are they watching you, witnessing you going through this?
Oh, yeah.
So how old were you when they're watching this?
Pretty much from 7 all the way up. I mean, they gradually saw me changing. When I was 7 years old, I realized one thing. This is what's changed my whole life. My friends kept going to the ice cream truck. They had money every day, even though we were in the ghetto, poor, broke. We had nothing. We were getting money donated to us from local church and other people in the neighborhood. And we were taking showers outside in the backyard because we didn't have water on. We'd plug the hose into our neighbor's house. And I'm saying, how in the hell can they afford the ice cream truck every single day? So I go outside and I say to myself, there's got to be something I can do. I said, I'm going to go inside and get all my toys. I put all my toys in an old Winn-Dixie milk crate, and I went door to door. I violated my mom's rules about leaving the circumference of the house.
Yeah.
And I went door to door around the whole block. I squared the block and asked for donations in exchange for my toys. And so I sold all my toys that day, and I ended up with like $13 and change. And I went to the ice cream truck, and I got my bazooka bubble gum with my comic strip inside of it, and I realized something. I said, wow, I'm going to save myself. There's nobody coming to save me. I am my own savior. And that changed my life forever. And that same
7 years old?
7 years old. My mom saw me standing in the picture window of the house we were renting, and I had a couple of dollars in my hand. She said, what's wrong, son? I said, I don't belong here. I'm getting out.
I don't belong, meaning in the community, in the ghetto that you're talking about?
Right.
Who hurt you at that age?
Nobody hurt me. It was tough moving there because coming from New York to Miami, my accent was a New York accent. Their accent was a Southern drawl. I didn't understand what they were saying. They couldn't understand what I was saying, so they thought I was being, quote unquote, bougie. Had to fight a lot. And initially, then I started making friends later, but I had to prove myself that I could fight.
Right.
It was just rough, man. Growing up, eating toast and Cairo syrup, that was like a good lunch, begging neighbors for food, stealing fruits from trees in the neighborhood to have food in your stomach. It was rough, man. Holes in my shoes. We put cardboard inside the shoes to keep our feet from touching the street. It was pretty tough. I had 2 pairs of pants. I would bleach them, and then I would dye them with the rich dye because that way I wouldn't get picked on in school for not having any pants. So I would change the colors every few days to make it look like I had a lot of pants. And in my shirt, I had one LaCroix Sportif alligator. I would unstitch it and restitch it over the Bobo shirts just to make it look like I had some kind of style to keep the people from picking on me. But it got me through the school,
Your parents, do you have any resentment towards them?
Not really. Looking back now, I realize they did the best that they could do. My father was a drug addict and alcoholic, but understanding now mental health, I understand that he was severely depressed. His father walked out when he was a little kid, said he was going to get a pack of cigarettes and never came back. And his mom died when he was only 16, and that just took him over the edge. So his whole thing was trying to cover and mask his pain. I get it now. I'm older now. I can see what the cause of his illness was, and it was an illness. And my mom, she went through some things in her own household that I found out just maybe about 3 or 4 years ago with one of the people in my family, one of the men in my family, raping a lot of women in my family on her side. So she went through a lot of mental trauma. So you had 2 people that dealing with severe trauma that were in a relationship together and just trying to hold on to whatever they can there. And their only ability to generate money was, hustling something here and there or selling newspapers or just, delivering newspapers at night or cleaning bathrooms at like the Shula Resort, which I used to have to go to in the middle of the night sometime and help them clean.
Is your dad still around?
No, he's gone.
Neither one of them are around.
Yeah.
How old were you when they passed away?
My dad died 5 years ago. So he, unfortunately, he was at Melbourne, Palm Bay, Florida, at an outdoor concert amphitheater, and somebody called 911 and said that this guy was harassing people in the front row. A drunk guy was harassing people in the front row, a vagrant. But he was just invited there. He was literally invited by a person in the van. somebody wanted to get the front seat. Somehow I found out they couldn't get the front row, and the cops came and beat him and broke his back and gave him a double concussion. So subsequently, he died from his injuries later on.
Pretty quickly, or?
No, he suffered for about a year.
Okay, got it. So 6 years ago is when that happened. 5 years ago when he passed away. How about your mom?
My mom died she died in 2011.
Got it. So about 13 years ago when she passed away.
She died from Lou Gehrig's disease.
Would you say you had a good relationship with your mom at the end?
Yeah, at the end, I wouldn't say at the end a great relationship in terms of seeing her all the time, because she lived up in Melbourne and I lived down in Fort Lauderdale area. I would see her as much as I possibly could, but I got to see her before, when she was getting really sick. I got to see her, and talk to her.
Am I off base to say that you didn't have the most loving relationship with your parents, where, parents, we love them, but sometimes some people don't like them and they don't want to be around them. Were they two of your favorite people to be around, or not necessarily? You kind of wanted to stand on your own ground and do your own thing?
It wasn't, well, my father was, you got to get away because, this guy was, I loved him to death, man, but boy, he was a trip. But my mom, she, I just couldn't understand. She did the best, I can see now she did the best she could, but I couldn't be around her too much because if he's around, it's going to be a problem.
They were still together till the end?
All the way to the end. Even though he would leave for 3-4 months and come back, he'd be sleeping in the streets. He'd be like a bum that had a house. It was pretty incredible. And the house that we lived in, that we finally got out of the ghetto, I'm the one who got them that house. I entered a HUD drawing at the local library. I filled all my dad's information on HUD documents when I was in the 7th grade, walking home from school. And we won the $30,000 from HUD to put down on the house. That's how we got from the ghetto into Miami, New Orleans area.
Interesting. And your best friend, if you were to say 3 best friends of yours, how long have you had the relationship with them?
Oh, I've got some friends all the way from, we moved around a lot, but by the time we got to Miami, New Orleans, I got friends from Miami, New Orleans from 7th grade till today.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to something you said. You said, when I read the Bible, Deuteronomy, you went to multiple different books in the Bible, right? And you said, what I'm noticing here is, God killed 3 million, but the devil, I don't hear anything about the devil. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying is, you have to understand that a lot of the orders for death, including Sodom and Gomorrah, are being created or being ordered by God himself, if it is even a him. I don't believe it's a gender at all. But this is why I'm saying these people, the person that's being considered to be God in the Bible, I don't think is an actual creator of the universe. I think we're mistaking the creator of the universe for a person, for people, different people that exist within that text that have been masquerading as gods, according to the ancient tablets. They came here, they engaged mankind. If you read the book of Enoch, you discover like the angel Azazel comes down, right? He comes from the sky down to earth. The first thing he teaches us is how to make weapons. Let me show you how to smelt this steel and make this sword that can cut through anything. Let me show you how to make a breastplate. Let me show you how to make a shield so that you can repel a blade and all these kind of things. And then he even goes out and helps humans kill people. So these are not what they call quote unquote angels. In my opinion, these are what people call aliens or advanced. I call them advanced beings because we look a lot like them and they look a lot like us. There is some distinction. They were distinguishable from humans, but they look just like humans in the biblical text. In the Bible, in some texts, they call them the Anak, A-N-A-K, the Anunnaki, the Anak. They say we were grasshoppers in their eyesight. They were big people. And these people came from heaven to earth. And in the Nitiru, in ancient Egypt, they say the Nitiru came down from heaven to earth and turned mud into a kingdom. In the Aboriginal culture, the Aboriginal elder, I've been on walkabouts in the outback. The Aboriginal elders, verbal handed down history for thousands of years. We were seeded on this planet by the Pleiadians. They brought us here. We were the first people here. You go to the Hopi tribe, the Lakota tribe. Our star brothers seeded us on this planet. I mean, we keep slapping our ancient ancestors in the face, doubting their wisdom and doubting their understanding of what really happened. And doubting their drawings that they left behind and their texts that they left behind by coming up with their own modern-day mainstream idea of what we think happened when they left the proof and the evidence right for us.
So in your rights, you think Jesus was an alien?
I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. When you look at the Apocrypha text, you discover, first of all, in the regular Bible, you discover he's born of a virgin birth, right?
But then in the Apocrypha text, you discover that his grandmother was also born of a virgin birth. So it seems like this establishment of a bloodline there specifically. When you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover that he talks about he developed the ability to incarnate at will on and in any plane that he desires. That's pretty powerful stuff. He's saying he can come back however he wants and when he wants and in any dimension that he wants. He even talks about having rejuvenation chambers, which is what I believe the Serapeum is located in Saqqara in Egypt, is one of his rejuvenation chambers, where they would actually create bodies and put bodies in these gigantic megaton stone boxes made of granite and diorite, which are still radioactive, by the way. You can take your Geiger counter, they're still radioactive. They have an energy source coming out of them. And then he said that I would transfer my consciousness from one body to the next. He would leave another body in there rejuvenating for 100 years, then he'd come back and get it, and he'd do that over and over again. And by that method, he lived through eons. Pretty interesting. So I think maybe they decided to come back through a womb.
Got it. What's your level of certainty on that?
My level of certainty?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, man. I feel pretty confident in it. You know, and the reason why is because I've just done the work. I've read so much information, and I've been able to put together so many dots. And I think that the average person is saying, wow, sounds outrageous, because this is what I was taught in school. And all they have is the level of what their parents told them and what the school told them. And the school, we know, robs your identity, and it robs your creativity, and it robs your consciousness. It puts you into a prison mindset. You just become an NPC. And what your parents are giving you is handed down, stuff from generations ago that a lot of the times really is just, old tradition that really has nothing to do with real science, real knowledge, real investigation. My research and investigation is second to none. I'll stand by my research and investigation against anyone. Because like I said, I've gone out there, I put the time and I put the effort in. Am I 100% correct on everything? Probably not, because nobody is. We're human beings. But at the same time, my work is pretty strong. My ability to put together circumstantial evidence is very strong. And in America, if you have enough circumstantial evidence, you can convict somebody of a crime. Take that same mindset and put it out into the field of archaeology, ancient civilizations, quantum physics, science, and anything else. You could begin to build circumstantial evidence. And if you could put enough things together that begin to make sense, people just can't see them because they're so spread out. A lot of the stuff I research is on different timelines. So you might take something from 6000 BC and find something in 1100 AD that connect together. But because people only specialize in 6000 BC, they never get to 1100 AD. That's another specialist. So I'm a person that collects all the data.
Who have you debated?
Whoever debate.
Have you ever had like a public debate with anybody? Like it's on YouTube, we can see, or no?
Haven't had a public debate. There's only one person that wanted to debate me, but he only wanted to debate me so that he can clout chase. This guy wanted to clout chase me. He's trying to come up.
Is he a big name or no?
Well, he's not a big name. He's trying to become big, but I looked him up first. I researched him before I disagreed to do it, and found out that he had did some things like, he had a sexual abuse on a 19-year-old minor. And I'm like, why would I make a guy like this famous?
Who is this guy? Is it another YouTuber or?
Yeah, I won't give his name because,
okay. Is he the one that, I think I may know who you're talking. Does he have a YouTube channel with like 3 million subscribers or something, or no?
Oh, no. He's on like 100-something thousand.
Okay, I got you. Okay. All right, I'm sure if he sees this, he'll know who it is and he'll react to it. But you're open to debating anybody?
I'm open, yeah.
Okay, so if we set up anything with anyone else that's maybe expert in the area of topic that you're okay with a panel like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the devil, who is the devil in your eyes? Is he also an alien, or is it not a real person, not a real spirit? Who is the devil?
Let me tell you what happened. So you go again into the ancient tablets, you discover that Yahweh, who's in the Bible is known as God, right? Yahweh is known in the ancient text as Satan, the Lord of Eden, E-D-I-N. The land between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers is where they had the Eden, E-D-I-N. And when he has his outdoor laboratories, what I like to call it, where they discovered that mating these people together would work if they had enough genetic diversity. So what happens is his brother, Enki, who's now known as Satan, he comes in and he starts talking to the people there. And he starts telling them, it wasn't just Adam and Eve he was talking to, there were other people there. And he was telling them how powerful they really were, and that the mysteries of the universe was inside of their body, and that they had the ability to ascend even to a higher level than even them. And so these people then realized that they weren't animals. They clothed themselves. And by the time this Yahweh character, also known as Enlil, comes back, Satan, he realizes what's happened, that his brother has given them the apple. What's the apple? Knowledge. And so he gets pissed off and he curses his brother and he tells them, never listen to him again. He's evil. He's the devil. He wants to hurt you. That's where this whole devil thing pops up from. It comes from the Sumerian tablets, okay? That's where it comes from. It comes from the Sumerian tablets. Enki and Enlil, two brothers fighting each other because one brother didn't like what the other brother was doing to people.
So what is your interpretation of people who go and, go to conferences and they look up to the devil and evil and, there's a religion, right? What is the church called? Satanists. What do you think about them?
I don't like it. I mean, and it's all about frequencies. Yeah, and people say, well, you don't believe in God. You're atheist. No, I'm not an atheist. I believe there's a God. I believe there's a God. I talk about it in my book, Fractal Holographic Universe, because the evidence, the circumstantial evidence of a creator is all around us, even inside this microphone.
Who do you think it is?
It's not a who, it's a frequency. I believe that God is a frequency. We have to tune into that frequency. We understand a couple things through metaphysics. There's a universal consciousness, and there's only one consciousness. You and I appear to be separate and divided apart, but we're not. We're still only one. Ancient Mayan saying, "In lakek alakin," I am just another you. And so there's a radio station broadcasting out frequencies from the universal mind, and it's broken up into point number. I'm 99.1, you're 99.2, he's 99.3. Your avatar body is designed to encapsulate a point number of that frequency for a temporal amount of time. You're able to encapsulate that frequency of consciousness. So, but it's all coming from one source. It's a frequency. God is a frequency.
Interesting you say that. So I got Nikola Tesla once said the following. He said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
What do you think he meant by this?
Oh, man, that's powerful. Powerful statement. It's one of the brightest minds in the universe. What he's saying is that when you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, you're now tapping into the essence of the nature of reality. That this reality that we're living in is an illusion. We have the illusion of solidity. Everything is really a frequency. Everything is made of light, and light is also a frequency, right? So this microphone in front of me looks like a solid object. As a matter of fact, it looks like I'm actually touching it, but I never actually touched this mic. What happens is this mic is made up of a wave of potentials. They're in superposition of each other, okay? And when I look down at this mic, my consciousness collapses those waves into the illusion of solidity. It's light waves slowed down. My brain has a capability, and your brain has a capability of creating a collapsing frequency wave that collapses this into what appears to be a solid object. When I touch it, I don't even touch it. You never touch anything. The electromagnetic frequency of the electrons orbiting the atoms in your fingers are repelling the electrons orbiting the atoms in the microphone, okay? So you don't even touch anything. That's electromagnetic repulsion. This whole world, this whole realm, just like the ancients say, is a dream world, sleepy time. This is an illusion. And what Nikola Tesla is saying, when we begin to understand the nature of reality is frequency and vibration, and through different frequencies and vibrations, you can create a realm known as our universe.
Who do you think he was? You think he was an alien? You think he was a regular guy? You think, what did he have access to that, made him come up with so many different inventions that eventually JP Morgan first is funding him? Then he's realizing, wait a minute, this guy's going to put all the oil industry out of business, my biggest customers. Let me stop funding the guy, and then he goes out of business. Who do you think Nikola Tesla was?
I think he was an incredible human being. I don't have any research material to give me anything other than he was a human being, right? And we know he had a mother because he left a note to his mother right when he died about the fact that he felt like, he had been pretty much abused his whole life. But he had a strange ability to do thought experiments. Thought experiments are incredible things, something that I experiment with myself. But he takes these thought experiments and he creates these inventions in his mind. He saved a lot of money on engineering and production because he would create these things in his mind. He would see the process in his mind. He would even turn them on and see if they worked. And if they didn't work, he would know. So he'd only create things that actually worked. But he was doing it all within his consciousness. So he had tapped into a higher level. This man was on another level altogether. He was a high thinker, probably one of the highest functioning savants this world has ever seen.
Who else would you put at his level?
Well, Well, beneath him would be Albert Einstein. I mean, he, again, did thought experiments, Plato. There's just so many great
beneath
minds out
him.
there.
So you have him at the top.
Yeah, I have him at the top.
You have him at the top.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the story with John G. Trump and what happened with him? Have you heard that story?
No.
Okay, let me read this to you. I'm curious to know what you'll say about this. So January 9th, 1941, 2 days after he dies, Fred Trump, which is Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump's brother, John G. Trump, the FBI calls him to determine if any of the belonging in Tesla's estate would be dangerous if found in enemy's hands. After 3 days of investigation, his brother says there's no risk. And then still, they took boxes and boxes of stuff that he had. And, where they kept it to themselves. And some of the stuff we may know about, some of the stuff we don't know about. And this leads to a documentary recently that came out by Stephen Greer. I don't know if you saw that or not. The Last Century or
The Lost
Century.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, it's great. If you've seen, okay. So the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951 that has roughly 6,000 patents that are in there, kept from us, where they have a structure. I may, butcher some of the numbers, that they'll pay you 75% of what the patent they think is worth. But if you ever sell it or use it, you'll go to jail, felony, all that stuff. How much access to technology and information do you think the government has? Or maybe something above even the government that none of us even know about, that maybe Nikola came up with or somebody else came up with?
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of Nikola Tesla's inventions already done, produced, and tested. We know that he came up with the scalar weapon, and they already used the scalar weapon. We actually integrated that into different radar systems. As a matter of fact, the thing that brought down the UFO, the famous UFO from 1947 in New Mexico, right, the Roswell incident, that was a scalar beam that came from the United States military, most likely engineered or reverse engineered from Nikola Tesla's documents. They discovered that scalar weapon, it wasn't really used as a weapon at first. It was a radar system. They discovered that it disoriented these craft and brought them down. In some weird way, it disoriented their ships. I believe that's how we began to figure out how to bring these things down, capture them, and reverse engineer them. I think the government has a lot of technology that they've been holding back from the general population for several reasons. One reason is for national security and global security. I can agree with that 1,000%, because there's a lot of people out here that if they got their hands on some of this technology would try to utilize it to take over the world. I mean, that's just a known fact because it's the nature of mankind. The next thing is also monetary capitalization. How do you take this technology? They want to, of course, weaponize it, make money there. Then they want to break it down for civilian use and then capitalize on it there as well. So you have the combination between the two. Monetizing in military is weaponization, and then monetizing and capitalization in the civilian area. And then the third thing is drawing out technologies as long as you possibly can. Keep lying about peak oil. Keep lying about resources and running out, and we're getting droughts, and there's no more waves for birds. There's no more coal, and make up these lies, and then so we got more coal. Oh, we found more resources. But just drawing it out as long as we can. Now they come with the electric car. Right, the electric car is more detrimental than the combustion engine. So now they're going to move away from the electric car, and they're going to move into hydrogen, because that's really much better. But they're going to go to a hydrogen fuel cell, a solid state hydrogen, instead of going straight hydrogen. So this is all about drabbing down technology over time to capitalize over hundreds of years. Some of their plans are 400 and 500 years in advance. Their business models and their business plans go out for 400 or 500 years. The average business person plans 3, 5, 10, but they're planning for hundreds of years in advance.
I understood number one, which number one was, there's a good purpose to it, right? We got to protect, because a lot of these technologies in the wrong person's hands, they can destroy the world. Maybe even bigger than a nuclear bomb.
Right.
Who knows what these 6,000 patents that they are. Number two is, the idea of that, when you read it, it says the Invention Secrecy Act requires the government to impose secrecy orders on certain patent applications that contain sensitive information, thereby restricting disclosure of the invention, withholding the patent. And then if you read it even closer, it explains the fact that even if the law is designed to prevent disclosure of new inventions and technologies that, in the opinion of selected federal agencies, in the opinion, not accuracy, but just purely opinion, present an alleged threat to the economic stability and national security of the United States. So national security was your point number one.
Yeah.
economic stability, we can now drive a car with water 200 miles per gallon. Wait a minute, that's going to destroy the oil industry.
Exactly.
That's a $5 trillion industry. We can't do something like that.
Right.
So $500 billion industry, we can't do something like that. I get that part. $5 trillion industry. But Rob, can you see what oil industries? I think it's $5 trillion. If you can check that up, I think it's $5 trillion. But the third one, unpack the third one a little bit more, because I think I understood what you said, but can you unpack it for me, please?
Yeah. What was the third one I said again? There was the...
You said the first one was the risk of the wrong person getting their hands on it. Number 2 was capitalization.
Right.
And then number 3, you were talking about, that they're drawing it out and delaying it. They're not wanting us to know.
Right. Well, you draw it out.
Almost like gaslighting us a little bit.
Well, the reason why you draw it out is because you can extend your ability to monetize, right? So, for example, the cell phone came out during the Vietnam War. We didn't get that until 1992, I think it was. We called it the bowling pin. But it was available, a long time before then. And so I think they have the ability to draw things out extensively to just give us small amounts of advanced technology so that we as a civilization, the general population, advances much slower than they advance, giving them the ability to always be 10 steps ahead of us technologically. If they create technology that they dole out to us almost instantly or not too far behind, then we can always catch up to them. And if we catch up to them, then we become a threat. We cannot become a threat by any means necessary, so they keep us with technologies that are far, far behind what they have. I mean, they still have Elon Musk launching, chemical rockets.
What's your point?
I don't think chemical rock. I think that's old-fashioned. I think that's really old technology, super ancient technology.
So you think even Elon Musk is old school?
I think he's done a great job with his, launching and landing the same rockets. But you're using chemicals you're using controlled explosions in the 21st century. I think there's a lot better technology out there.
You think he's aware of that?
He's probably aware of it, but he's probably doing the best he can.
Got it. So
I don't think they're going to give him the anti-gravity or allow him to use it because of that act you just read.
Yeah, but Rob, I just looked at it. It says $5.3 trillion in 23. I see here the market size, but that's the number I see. You see 1.8, somewhere between those two. Yeah. But industry revenue has increased to a CAGR of 9.6% to $5.3 trillion over the 5 years to 2023. So technology that he doesn't have access to because he's using the old method of, so let's go back a little bit on this, right? The whole Nikola Tesla technology software, all these things that they have. When you ask the average person, if you become a president, what's the first thing you'd want to know? Most people say, John F. Kennedy assassination, who did it? Or they'll say, aliens, do they exist, right? I want to know what are some of the patents and inventions that they have in this Invention Secrecy Act. Do you think presidents, people who become presidents, even get the real access to these information? Or do you think it's even kept away from them because they're a 4 to 8 year type of person, they go and they could potentially leak it to others? Yeah. Do you think they get that information?
2 reasons. One reason you just named, because they can leak it out. They're just a temporary puppet. And then the second reason is plausible deniability. So they don't give them any information. Presidents have no real power. I mean, if we didn't learn that during COVID, then we didn't learn anything. President says, shut down this and do that. And the governor of Florida, said no. DeSantis said, no, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. So DeSantis had more power than the president. The president says, no, don't do this, do that, do this, do that. And he said, no, we're going to do this and do that. We do whatever we want to do. We're going to do whatever we want.
Well, that's because it's set up in a way where states get to govern. Like California did a full-on shutdown. New York did. Maybe Illinois did. A little bit of D.C. Yeah. But maybe states like Florida, Texas, Tennessee were a little bit more, no, we believe in people staying open. We're going to leave businesses open. But that's more a little bit about governing, right? This is more access to information that do we trust telling? You think Donald Trump knows exactly who killed John F. Kennedy? You think Donald Trump knows when he became a president what those 6,000 patents are? If he had interest, you think they would give it to him? You think Donald Trump, just recently, Rob, if you can play this clip from Donald Trump on Logan Paul. I don't know if you saw this or not.
No.
So he's on Logan Paul, and Logan asked him a question about aliens, and here's what he says. Go for it, Rob.
There are Unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
I have met with people that are serious people, pilots that look just like you, actually. Tom Cruise, but taller. These are perfect people that say, sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster, and they really mean it. Am I a believer? No.
There are unidentified.
So he doesn't believe it, right? Do you think he's saying he doesn't believe it to show that he can keep the information? Do you think he says he doesn't believe it because they never really showed him what they had at Area 51? What do you think it is? What do you think it is?
I possibly think he's just, showing that, hey, I can play ball. If I'm given secrets, I can hold them.
You think that's the play?
Oh, absolutely.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good positioning to process it because they want to know you can trust me with information. I'm not going to leak it with others, right?
Right.
All right. So if you were, this is stuff that you're very curious about. I'm curious to know what you're going to say about this. If you were to become president, okay, or if you could know anything about the information that, say, is available out there to you, that even yourself earlier you said, I'm probably not right about everything I'm saying. I could be wrong about a lot of things I'm saying or some of the things that I'm saying, but I'm pretty confident in my beliefs, right? But if you could know anything that you became president or somebody of that level of power where it's 100% confirmation, what would you want to know and why?
I'd want to know the access to zero-point energy. I'd want to know what technologies have been suppressed that give us access to wireless energy, zero-point energy, perpetual motion devices, or anything else that can generate electricity that takes us off the teat of the electric companies. Because I think that one of the biggest things we need in this world is to bring everyone up to speed and to create a real utopia on this planet is everyone needs to have electricity. It doesn't have to be completely free, but it should be significantly reduced. The price should be significantly reduced, and people should have access to power all over the world.
So you're part of the Secrecy Act of 1951 because you think that's with it. You think we have access to that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been many inventions that have come forward. I even saw some I've been in some of Dr. Greer's documentaries on Amazon Prime.
I've seen,
And there's just technologies that we visited different laboratories where they've actually had these devices. The problem that people go out and try to patent this technology, and once you try to patent it, it's over. What you have to do is you have to create open source. I have a tech company called First Class Space. And one of the things, we launched it right before COVID, but then obviously that slowed things down. But the thing that we're doing when we go back live again is we're going to get our engineers and our physicists together, and we're going to create an open source forum. And we're not going to try to patent anything. We're going to put information out for the world so that people get a chance to try to recreate some of these technologies.
Yeah, when you watch the documentary, that's what he recommends to the guy, right? What is the guy's name that he's calling him? He says, look, here's what's the right way to do it with this invention that you have. Make it open source. And he says, no, I don't want to make it open source. I don't know what the guy's name was. Thomas Moray. I don't know if that was the guy he spoke to or not, but it was one of the guys. He said, why don't you make it open source? No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
We got to keep it. This is my baby. And he says, no, this is not your baby. You got to let this out to everybody else. Is this where you think Musk, to him, everything is about open source? You want the software, what we're doing Tesla? Here. You want to know what we're doing with this? Here. Yeah. Even when he invested originally in the nonprofit Open AI, his goal was, I think he said he put $50 million of his own money, give or take. And he's feeling like now it's no longer being Open AI. He's like, wait a minute, if you're doing this, I'm going to start my own Apple iPhone. Do you think that's where his position is with OpenAI?
Yeah, because I got to give it to him. He was smart. He created industries by doing open source. You want to create an electric car industry? Well, you got to open source it so that you can create the industry for it, because everybody can get a copy of the battery. Everybody can make a battery. Now you got competition. Without competition, you don't have an industry. So he did a very brilliant thing doing that. I got to give it to him on that. And understanding that that is the mentality that it takes to expand and spread technology, information, resources, and software around the planet in a way that can be utilized and great for entrepreneurs especially. You have to open source things. And so once you close it off and try to hold it near and dear to your heart, the only thing you do is end up getting either taken out or get your invention or your software taken away, getting it eminent domain and suppressed. But you make it open source. Everybody has it now, and everybody can do something with it. Now you have a whole industry.
Is it a form of being a whistleblower, like what Snowden and some of these guys said? Once I put the information out there, it's out there. But if I keep it to myself, they're going to come and take me out, right?
Yeah.
There's almost it's a lesser risk if you put it out there than to keep it to yourself. But financially, it's attractive to say, no, I'm not going to leak it to anybody else because, what if they steal my patent? What if they steal this? What if they steal that? Go back to 0 point energy.
Yeah.
Why, 0 point energy? There's many different things. Why is that so intriguing to you?
Well, when you look at the ancients and you see the flower of life symbol, the flower of life pattern.
By the way, would you like any tea or coffee, or are you good?
I'll take a little drink, sip of water. Yeah. The flower of life, the flower of life pattern in ancient texts and ancient cultures is pretty interesting because inside of that pattern, I believe that pattern, in my opinion, is the face of God. The face of God potentially could be the flower of life. When you look at the flower of life and understand that it's an energy pattern, and when you access those interconnecting circles and the flower of life, and you take a look at them, you can fit 64 tetrahedrons inside the circle laid over top the interconnecting grid. Those 64 tetrahedrons create a vortex or a connecting piece in the middle that is called a vector equilibrium. And within that vector equilibrium, you have an unlimited source of unparalleled energy. And that flower of life symbol, that energetic symbol, where the crosses of those circles meet, is called the Vesica Piscis. It's known as the womb of life. It's where all energy emanates into the third dimension to create the reality that we're seeing here. And so this symbol exists at every Planck unit in space-time that exists throughout the entire known universe. And it's the source of energy, and it's the source of the vibration for everything that exists in the known universe. And so that's why I say that, in my opinion, is the face of God.
That, in your opinion, is the face of God. Okay, so do you think the only reason why it's not open to the rest of us is because of the industries it'll destroy, or do you think there's other reasons for it? I know we talked about
there's many reasons. Well, there's one reason is this is a source of unparalleled energy and power. If everyone knew how to tap into it, it could be dangerous. I would agree with that. If it's set up in a way where it can be harnessed and distributed,
right?
Like we do, nuclear energy is dangerous. It can blow up things, but we have nuclear power plants, right? So the understanding how to utilize 0 point energy and then distributing the energy is something we're already doing with nuclear power plants. It's nothing outrageous to think that we couldn't do it. And understanding that, having empathy for people, not seeing yourself as above everyone, but trying to find a way, how do we bring everyone up? How do we give everyone an opportunity to be on the same playing field? How do we make everyone, give everyone a seat at the table? You give them energy so that they can raise their kids healthy, so they can have running water, so they can flush their toilets, so they can get access to things like medicines and so forth that they need, so they can have machines that have irrigation and so forth, so they can grow crops so all these things are needed for humanity to thrive. The people at the top, it's a very small group of people, they in some way don't want to see everyone on the same playing field, or at least 1 or 2 levels beneath them. They'd rather keep them 10 levels beneath with a boot on their neck. And it's all about control, and it's all about power. It's all about domination. It's not about money, because money can be printed with zeros and ones that don't even exist. So we have to find a way to get through this, to take back control of this planet, to help humanity. I think that right now we're on a precipice. We can go left or we can go right. We're really on the fence right now. And I think that I'm optimistic, though, that humanity will pull through, that we'll get through this age. I believe that we've really pretty much gotten through the nuclear age. We're at the tail end of it. But I think we have some more huge challenges to come. But we have to see that you and I are brothers, and every person on this planet are brothers and sisters, and stop falling for the divide and conquer tactics. Left wing, right wing, it's all the same bird.
It's working very effectively, though.
Yes, it is.
So let's go back to it. So, you think Trump said that because Trump wants the people to know that I can keep a secret. Okay. Some may say, well, the files you had at Mar-a-Lago, we don't know if you can keep secrets because you're going to want to brag about what you have. Anyways, that's a power play that sometimes you speak code. Mm-hmm. You may have today spoken to the other YouTuber that's maybe calling you out that none of us know about, but you're speaking code to him, and he knows what you just said that you called him out, right? That's what I mean when I say speaking code. Okay, so then who are the people that have access to these Secrecy Act of the 6,000 patents, or John F. Kennedy, or Area 51?
Yeah.
Who are these people, these faceless people that we don't know about, that have more power than the leader of the free world. Who are they?
We're talking about the elite oligarchs, less than 100 families that control everything you hear, see, smell, touch, what you can say, what you can't say, where you can go, what invisible line on the planet you can cross, what invisible line you can't cross. Those are the people that dominate and control the banking systems around the entire planet. That one family is worth about $700 trillion. They control a lot of the pharmaceuticals, through the Rockefeller
Foundation. Did you say
Foundation.
700 trillion?
Yeah.
Who's the one family?
The Rothschilds are worth $700 trillion.
I don't even think there's that much currency in the world. Can you type in Rothschild net worth? Okay, keep going. I'm listening.
It's the family's net worth combined. Okay. Yeah. So they control all the central banks along with their partner Rockefeller. They have Rockefeller Foundation has access to a huge part of the pharmaceutical industry, and they've made a lot of money off of that. Now, I don't want to try to put those people down or say anything negative about them. It just is what it is. But there's people along the same level that they're at that also have these powers. The Council for Foreign Relations and all these different, these different groups that exist to help cultivate and create the rules and laws that they want to see executed on this planet. And the people on this planet being in full collusion with what they say. In other words, the governments are supposed to work for us. We are the people that are supposed to control the governments. And they flipped it and they have it where we have to listen to them and that they control us when it's supposed to be the opposite way around. When I go see a doctor or an attorney and they start talking things that I don't agree with, I say, hey, well, slow down. You work for me. I'm your boss. You see, this is the mentality you have to have when you're dealing with governments. You have to realize, wait a minute, you're a public servant. I'm your boss, and you're going to do what I tell you to do. You have to flip it, and you have to make your power play. You have to let them know, like, I'm in control here. I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'm going to do, or I don't agree with this situation. Look a little deeper over here, or don't do that because I said it, not for you to influence me consistently into doing something that you want to see or get the outcome that you particularly want. And I think that we have to understand the power that we have and the ability we have to unify and organize and to become, a united front to get the outcome that we're looking for.
So you don't think the Trump family's an oligarch yet to have that kind of power, that kind of money that these guys have? Meaning that he's on the inside to say, well, one of us is going to be running it, because they're definitely treating him like not one of us.
Yeah, no, I think it's higher than that.
Higher what than that?
Yeah.
You're talking even more money than Musk's got.
Yeah.
Musk's not even in that community, is what you're saying.
No, I don't think so at all.
Got it.
It's really big. These
And you think they know exactly what's in there? You think they're the ones that are sitting there? So how do they, let's just say, let's play that up. And again, I don't know if Rothschild net worth is $700 trillion, because I don't think there's $700 trillion in circulation, but let's say that's the case. Let's go on that part. So, okay, how do you control the people that have access to those 6,000 patents? Man is pretty ambitious, right? It's, when I one time sat down with Jonah Mendes, who was the former chief disguise officer of the CIA for 28-something years, I said, what makes for a great CIA agent? I'll never forget what she said. Yeah. She said a great CIA agent is someone that's very charming, charismatic, competitive, ambitious, driven, smart, brilliant, all of these things. However, when this CIA agent has access to information that could prevent the next World War III, and he knows he just prevented the next big war, he doesn't need to go brag about it to others, right? That's what she said makes for a great CIA agent. Yeah. Okay, how do these oligarchs, if you say those are the people, how do they hire the people in charge of these types of information, knowing, even though they have their own self-motivation and ambitions, don't leak it? How do they trust these people?
Well, there's a couple of things. And first of all, in the $700 trillion, that's combined assets. It's not just cash; it's assets, land, and everything else. But on the other question, how do they control people? Everything is compartmentalized. It's the oldest technique and tactic utilized in the military-industrial complex. To have so many moving pieces, you have to be a real mastermind, and they are, where you have people doing things and jobs and tasks that they don't even know how it connects to something else. They only know they're executing this one small task. And even with that, they have a secrecy agreement, or a gag order, or whatever type of NDA they signed. It lets them know, if you violate this, these are the things that can happen to you. Most likely, a lot of those threats are most likely that you're violating a securities oath that's going to put you in violation.
Okay. So what are you going to do to me?
Yeah. Well, those people could be put in prison. Imagine if you say, if you leak this, it's a national security risk. All of a sudden now we can lie. These people are tied into every aspect and every.
Okay, so let me ask you this: how many people you think know about the 6,000 patents? How many total people?
How many total people know
How
about
many
all the patents?
people do you think that are controlling and protecting that since it came out in 1951? So let's just say in the last.
Oh, the patents, yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people know now, but it's like the problem with humanity
Okay,
is.
how many people know about John F. Kennedy's assassination? How many people know about the aliens? How many people know about the inventions that they've hidden from us? 0-point energy. How many total people you think have access to all
I
that?
know about John F. Kennedy's assassination. I have a very good idea who did it.
Oh, well, I want to go to that here in a minute. But how many people you think have access to that information?
Right now, I think a lot of people, because it's been researched for so many decades.
You think all these 6,000 patents are all public, that people know about it? All 6,000 of them?
They're not all 6,000, but people have been digging and digging and digging. Probably hundreds of people now have found information that's available, or links to information, or seen patents that got abandoned that they were then taken over by the government.
I guess what I'm asking is the people that you say, the oligarchs that say, hey, if you leak this, we're going to destroy your life, we're going to put you in jail. I mean, the Invention Secrecy Act says we're going to put you in jail if you do it. So it's like very straight up.
Yeah.
But is it fair to say the people that control that have the information, can we say there's 400 of them, 300 of them, 500 of them?
Fair enough. That's
okay.
fair enough, yeah.
Do you think a man is a noble man to know that that could help a lot of the average day-to-day people? If he doesn't leak that information, do you call that noble? Or do you think a person that could whistleblow that, to leak it to the open source it to the rest of the world would benefit from it? Some of these things could be cured to certain health challenges that we have today, that boom, with this one simple thing that we have, cancer is gone, XYZ is gone.
Right.
Do you think there's nobility in leaking it, or there's nobility in keeping it?
Well, it's a real tough question, because if you have to be in that position. If I was in that position, I'd have to make a tough decision. Do I risk my life, or do I risk my future, my family, to leak this information to the general world and to general population, and give the chance for people to stop getting on chemotherapy, because now we can really cure this cancer? It's a tough decision. I haven't been put in that position yet, so to be honest with you, I couldn't answer the question.
That's fair.
If I was in that position, then but I haven't been put in that position. It's a hell of a position to be in. I kind of wish I was.
You kind of wish you were.
Yeah.
Got it. So go back to John F. Kennedy. He says you think you know what happened to John F. Kennedy. Is it any different than what we've heard? Is it a unique position, or is it?
I don't know if it's unique. I think that the mafia was involved, with the CIA and the mafia, and I believe that the order for the kill was given by George Bush Sr., who happened to work at the CIA at the time, and I think the body was brought over by the mafia to the plane, and then they took it from there. I think that the ultimate order came from George Bush Sr. That's my opinion.
And that's based on what? Research on what you think, reading certain things?
Yeah, just researching the whole thing, understanding what securities risks that JFK had posed at the time with regards to aliens, Marilyn Monroe, and also, of course, wanting to change the economic system, wanted to get away from the fiat currency system. I think a combination of those things together put him in jeopardy.
And why Bush Sr.?
Well, he had the power. He was the head of the CIA at the time. He had the power to do it.
Have you read into the fact that when they asked him, where were you on the day of the assassination? I don't know where I was on that day.
Yeah.
Some people don't know where he was on that day. Have you followed that story?
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me when you think about that. By the way, so let me go to the next story.
Yeah.
Okay. So Eisenhower, the Greada Treaty. I don't know if you're familiar with the Greada Treaty, and Eisenhower, where the Greys were the aggressive aliens, and they had negative motives, all this other stuff, and an article's written, Rob, if you can pull this up, by WAPO. I think this was written in February 20th, 1954. It says Ike and the Alien Ambassadors. That's the name of the article. There you go. So February 20, 1954, story comes out that Eisenhower, while he's on vacation, steps out. He says, no, I got to get away from this vacation here to have a meeting with the Greys, because apparently they wanted us to stop. There you go. The 50 years, that was written 50 years ago tomorrow, on February 20, President Eisenhower interrupted his vacation in Palm Springs to make a secret trip to a nearby Air Force base to meet two extraterrestrial aliens, or maybe not. Maybe Ike was just going to the dentist.
Yeah.
There's some dispute about this. Anyways, and they said, hey, we want you to stop pursuing with the nuclear weapons. Give it to us. In return, we'll give you some advanced technology.
Yeah.
How much of this do you think is a myth? But this is WAPO writing about this.
Right.
How much do they think there's credibility behind it?
The only credibility I can come up with is what I heard from his own bloodline. And that would be his great-granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower, who I've been in many lectures and meetings with and done conferences with and been on panel discussions with. And she says that this information is 100% accurate and that she was told not to come out with this information, but she did, and to speak publicly about it, which she did, and they ostracized her from the family, even taking away her inheritance money. And I believe that because she was financially struggling severely at that time. And so I don't know how she's doing now. I haven't seen her in a couple of years. I have seen her online, but not in person in a couple of years. But I believe her wholeheartedly. And she had some other incredible stories to tell about the family as well that were pretty out there.
What were they?
Well, she said that they were, and I can say this because you know what? She said this on
Public.
Coast to Coast AM, so I can say it publicly. She said that they sent a handler to her years ago to talk about going to a breakaway civilization they had been creating on Mars. And she thought the guy was a love interest and really falling in love. And she found out through some method or whatever that he was actually just a handler. And tried to convince her to go with him to Mars. She said, no, I'm not going to go. They tried. They kind of fought over her trying to be there. And according to her, there were only specific bloodlines or specific people with particular interests and knowledge and so forth allowed to do this breakaway civilization. And she says that she decided not to go. But she said that they are creating a breakaway civilization on Mars. Now, the reason why I believe that is because, you know, a program that I created years ago called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, we had been downloading images from NASA, the European Space Agency, the Indian Space Agency, China, Russia, all the publicly available images from all the space probe data and rovers. And we had been finding a lot of anomalies, tons and tons of anomalies. And in these anomalies, these are out-of-place objects, things that shouldn't be where they are. And one of the most anomalies appear on Mars, to be honest with you. And so that led me to believe that she could be telling the truth. Maybe there is something going on up there. Maybe there was something going on up there. We know Ray Brandenburg wrote a book about the soil on Mars. The REMS unit sent back data on the atmosphere and the soil, saying that there's xenon in the atmosphere, xenon in the soil, which means it wasn't any kind of xenon. It was weapons-grade xenon. It was the byproduct of nuclear warfare. So something happened to Mars, and I think that there's a reconnaissance mission and maybe even a breakaway civilization there right now, and that the people that are traveling there in 2030 are just a front for what's really going on. There's something much deeper going on there, which is why probably it's a one-way trip. Every time you hear about these Mars trips, it's a one-way trip. They're not coming back.
Was she believable?
She was very believable, very, very believable.
Because I think she's an astrologer, if I'm not mistaken, you know, with what she did. But for me, for Eisenhower, for WAPO to write the story about this, and, you know, you could say, I don't trust anything WAPO says, or you could say, well, maybe this did happen, and the story is out there for people to read, the fact that he had a meeting with them. It gives me... Okay, so let me ask the question a different way from you. Aliens, right? Story came out from Harvard. Rob, I don't know if you have the story or not, if you want to pull it up. Harvard researcher says aliens may already live on Earth. This came out last week, okay? This is from Newsweek. If you want to go a little lower, zoom in a little bit, Rob. A study by Harvard social science researchers suggests that aliens may have been living on Earth for a while. The research paper, which is yet to be peer-reviewed, suggests that life forms from other worlds could be living underground on Earth or within the moon, and the UFOs and other unidentified anomalous phenomena may be evidence of them getting around. If you can go a little lower. The study suggests an unconventional explanation of UAP, with the authors of the paper hailing from Harvard University Human Flourishing Program. While researchers the factors that contribute to human well-being and flourishing, the paper has been taken out from ResearchGate since Newsweek published this article, but is still accessible using Internet Archive. That's kind of strange to take it down. What do you think about this?
It's pretty interesting. You know, I had Avi Loeb, the head of astrophysics at Harvard, on my podcast.
We had him as well,
Yeah, so
smart guy.
Smart, very intelligent guy. Incredible, man. And,
obviously he had a lot to say about Oumuamua being potentially an alien craft that would utilize the sun for gravitational assist, maybe even to get to deep space. And so I think there's a lot to it. I always go back to the ancient texts. When you go back to the Sumerian tablets, again, they talk about these beings talk about going to the moon. So they talk about the fact that they were going to go to the moon. And Enlil takes his son to the moon, and his son goes, "We must grab the eagle's masks," and because the atmosphere is fair. So they're saying that there's something wrong with the atmosphere, which we know the moon has a very, very thin atmosphere. It doesn't have no atmosphere; it's extremely thin. So they put on their eagle's masks and they get into their sky ship and forebode. So they left and went to the moon. Now, if you take the black box audio, which is available from the Freedom of Information Act to the general public now from Apollo 11, you can actually hear Neil Armstrong say something very interesting as they're going over the moon surface in the limb. And he's saying, wow, look at those convex craters down there. That a convex mean now you're talking a dome structure. He's talking in code. He said, I bet the people down there never get out. And he wasn't joking, and nobody laughed. And this is available for anyone to download. It's available to the general public. And you can download the black box redacted audio printout as well from NASA. And it says the same thing. And they didn't redact those statements from that document, which is pretty interesting as well. So, he said that there were people down there that never got out. He wonders if they're ever going to get out. Now, if you look at a USGS.gov radar image of the moon, it had from the Arecibo, okay? Arecibo did a deep penetrating radar. There's a guy on YouTube called Mars Anomalies, and he did a great video utilizing that imagery from the USGS.gov. It penetrates 30 meters beneath the moon's surface. It looks like giant beams are there, which is pretty crazy. So, it's just like, what's going on? We don't really know. We just know that they said the moon rung like a bell for hours when they hit it. We know that it's in a very strange orbit on its axis. It's geo-locked with Earth's spin on its own axis. And it's talked about in ancient texts that people went there. And then we have Neil Armstrong saying he thinks people down there never get out. Is it all coincidence? Possible, but it's pretty interesting.
So, aliens living here. Greer even talks about that, right? He even talks about that, the fact that, is it internally? Have they been here? Have they found a way to, coexist amongst us? And we don't even know. This kind of goes back to you talking about the fact that, if being born without a father in the womb, hey, if I wanted to do this, there's a lot of ways that somebody could, spin this to convince that they're already down here. That's believable. One may sit there and say, this sounds pretty convincing. How much proof do we have that, there's been instances or stories, other stories to say, no, there is no disputing this. That is 100%. They're down here.
Well, you just have to go again to our ancestors, because they talk about these beings walking amongst them, living amongst them. They drew pictures of them on petroglyphs, in caves, in tablets, and texts, and cylinder scrolls, and papyruses, and in scriptures. So we know the descriptions. We know what they look like. We have statues all over the world. We understand that people were here that were humanoid, but not exactly human, that engaged mankind, which they shouldn't have, because according to these same people in the text, they say, the creator of all will punish us for what we did here. So they even knew that they were wrong, and there was somebody even higher than them. Why would somebody say something like that? I mean, to write cuneiform is a very strenuous process, to take a wooden stick and turn it into a stylus and then make a wedge in wet clay and sit there and make all these crazy lines for thousands of hours, potentially, to come up with these sci-fi stories when it's time to go out there and hunt and gather. I don't think so. I think these people wrote down exactly what they saw and what they knew. All the megalithic sites around the world are nothing more than just more evidence for us.
Such as?
Well, you have the Great Pyramid at Giza. Okay, the Great Pyramid at Giza, just look at the Great Pyramid first of all. The Great Pyramid is exactly the height of all of the average height of all of the peaks on Earth. So if you had a polar orbiting satellite that orbited the planet this way. And as the planet, spin on its axis, it can scan the planet, calculate how many peaks there are, take the average height of those peaks. That's the height of the Great Pyramid. And that's incredible. Now, you then look at the Great Pyramid and you go, man, this is really wild. If you look at the Great Pyramid, the Giza Plateau looking down, you discover that the 3 pyramids and the temples surrounding in that area, you can connect them by lines. And when you connect them by lines in a grid pattern and then draw circles, concentric circles that line up with all those ancient sites, you then see a pattern. You can see it's an interplanetary map of our inner solar system, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. If you take the NASA image, all right, of the interplanetary solar system and lay it over that grid, it matches perfectly down to the AU, the astronomical unit, if you scale it up. Now that's wild. How can that possibly even happen? The latitude of the Grand Gallery inside the Great Pyramid are the exact same digits of the speed of light in meters per second. Then go across the world to Mesoamerica, which is now Mexico, to Teotihuacan. That complex is built with the same exact alignment with the Orion system as the Great Pyramid and the other 2 pyramids in Giza, but also the Pyramid of the Sun is exactly 50% the height of the Great Pyramid and identical to the same size as the base. Same architect, same blueprint, different location.
Why do you think that is?
Well, Thoth, the Atlantean, he called himself the Atlantean priest king. He calls himself the son of Atlantis. See, these Anunnaki people, they were the ones who built the Atlantean civilization. He started having problems with his brother Marduk. Marduk is in the Torah. He's in the Bible. He's in ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablets. He's also known to the Egyptians as Amun-Ra, okay? And they started having a battle because Amun-Ra, a.k.a. Marduk, wanted to take over kingship early ahead of his processional period. And it was a big battle going on. He started 2 wars. He started a pyramid war to take over early, and he started a pyramid war to keep his reign even going longer. But their father, Ea Enki, said, listen, though, go to the other side. Go over there to Mesoamerica. Let me deal with him. Go start a civilization over there. So he left, and he took Olmecs with him from Africa, and he started the Teotihuacan civilization. He built that long before the Mayans. The Mayans inherited what was already there, and you can learn that from homegrown archaeologists in Mexico. They will tell you that the Mayans built absolutely nothing. The Aztecs came hundreds of years later when a volcano erupted in their valley, destroyed their community. They stumbled across Teotihuacan as well, and they also inherited the pyramids going all the way down into the Yucatan Peninsula. And so this was built by a previous culture, and the Mayans are the ones who named them Teotihuacans. Now, what does Teotihuacan mean? The city of Tahuti. Who is Tahuti? Thoth is known as Tahuti in other parts of Africa. It's the same architect, the same man.
Interesting when you were sitting here going through all this stuff. So Assyrians, for you, he was the god of Babylon, right? Marduk.
Marduk, yeah.
So what do you know about Assyrians? You said you studied Assyrians.
Assyrian and Babylonians?
Yeah, what do you know about Assyrians and Babylonians?
Well, the Assyrians are the people that learned a lot from these people like Marduk and Sargon and Etana, Enki and Lil, Ningajida, and all these other, Nergal, and all these other ancient Sumerian gods. They call them the pantheon. They said the gods that came from heaven to earth, they were a pantheon, the original pantheon, long before the Greek pantheon. And that they taught them how to make weapons, how to make beer. The instructions for the first keg of beer are in the Sumerian tablets. They taught them how to build better structures, how to irrigate fields for growing crops in arid deserts. They actually, in the tablets, talk about clearing out the Euphrates and the Tigris to make it better for irrigation. All these technologies, they even have a Sumerian tablet giving to the Assyrians, showing them how to take the plow and how to utilize the plow. All this is handed down knowledge from other people.
You saying from Babylonians?
Babylonians and Assyrians got knowledge from these people. The Dogon tribe called them the Nomo. And it's interesting that the Dogon have a similar representation of these people, but they're all the way in Africa, and they say that they came from Sirius B. Now we know that there's a trinary star system called Sirius A, B, and C. Sirius B is a failed star. It ran out of fuel. It turned into a white dwarf, just like our sun will in 5 billion years, right? We have a middle-aged sun. Now, we can't see Sirius B with the naked eye, but they knew it was there. Not only did they know it was there, but they also knew the orbital period. They knew the trinary orbiting, how those stars orbited each other. And for thousands of years, they handed down this knowledge. They even knew from the NOMO the sizes, the shapes, and even the colors of the planets inside of our own solar system long before any astronomers ever figured it out. And that's why the Dogon tribe is a huge anomaly. They used to rule over the land of Kemet before it was called Egypt, and they were overthrown, and they ended up moving out to Mali, Africa, where they still hold the same traditions till this very day. No police, no military, no prisons, just knowledge.
Just knowledge. Okay. When we sit here and we, the average person's listening to, it's like, okay, we've gone to 50 different places together, right? We've talked about a little bit of faith, Jesus, Old Testament, not a lot of New Testament. You talked a lot about Old Testament, the devil, Satan, a little bit of politics, Trump, Invasion Secrecy Act, Assyrians, Babylonians. We've gone all over the place, right, with topics that we've had. If you have all this information yourself in your head, I think you tweeted one time saying, I've had the honor of raising 6 children, right? I think you said that.
Yeah.
6 kids, right? I'm assuming your kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does any of this information you have in your mind, does it create anxiety or a peace of mind for you?
That's a good question. So in the beginning, I think everyone goes through these stages. There's a beginning stage where it's almost like an epiphany moment where you go down the rabbit hole and you start finding out all this information that you've been told is not accurate, and you want to find out more about what might be accurate. So there's this curious nature that takes you over, and you become obsessed with gaining more information and more research. And then once you culminate a certain amount of knowledge, you go through something I made up a word called catastrophism. You go through the catastrophism phase where you're panicking, you have anxiety, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy, and the world's going to end, and everything sucks, and everything's stupid, and we're being poisoned, and we're going to be killed. And then you move through that catastrophism phase. Not everybody does, but some people do. I did, thankfully. I moved through that phase, a long time ago. And then you get into the problem solution phase. Okay, now how do I become part of the solution? We got the problem. How do we create a solution? Well, for me, the main reason why I've dabbled into so much of an array of information and knowledge across spanning all different areas of genres is because I understand that without knowledge, and specifically without knowledge of the past, the proper knowledge of the past, we can't have the right future. We cannot create a future on this planet that doesn't go back into this same cycle of rise and fall of civilization unless we truly understand and know exactly what happened to us. If you take a kid and that kid goes out and it doesn't have the ability to detect electric shock. It doesn't know that if it sticks its finger inside the electric socket, it's going to kill itself. So it does it over and over and over again until it electrifies itself and dies. We're that baby. So we're living in this cycle. It's called the Kali Yuga, right? It's this cycle of rise and fall of civilizations. It's called the Great Year in ancient texts. And we are now in what they call the Silver Age, the bottom left of the circle headed back towards another golden age. And we can achieve this golden age. We can get there in a few thousand years. But it's going to take knowledge, understanding, empathy. It's going to take the ability for people to put down divide and conquer tactics. And it's going to take the ability for people to overcome everything with love. And also the knowledge of what we did wrong to overcome doing that again in the future.
What is our biggest threat? Is it ourselves? Is it nuclear? Is it AI? Is it quantum? Computing? What is the biggest threat that we have?
Lack of knowledge. My people die for a lack of knowledge. It says that in the Bible. My people die for a lack of knowledge. The lack of knowledge is what's killing us, because lack of knowledge leads to fear, fear leads to anger, and anger leads to destruction.
Knowledge leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to destruction.
Correct.
But knowledge leads to fear, or a lack of knowledge leads to fear?
The lack of knowledge.
The lack of knowledge leads to fear, fear leads to the anger, anger leads to destruction.
Correct.
Interesting. So you're not, the level of advancement right now, we're hearing about, quantum programming, quantum computers, all this stuff. And it's not even, what do you call it, where we don't have access to it yet, right? It's not like we have it. And God knows what's going to happen when that takes place.
Right.
You know, how much are things going to change the next, you're saying thousands of years, you know, in the next couple thousand years, we can really figure this out. There's some people right now that are absolutely worried about the fact that Elon Musk, just the other day, Rob, if you have the clip of him talking about robots, that you can now buy the robots. I don't know if you have that or not.
Optimus?
Yeah, did you see that where he's talking about the robots? I think it's somewhere there when Musk shows, and I think he's even tweeting, he's even talking about it. That's the one. Can you play this clip? Go for it.
I think everyone in the world is going to want one, like literally everyone. And then there'll be obviously robots in industry making stuff, and so I mean I think the ratio of humanoid robots to humans will probably be at least 2 to 1, something like that, 1 to 1 for sure. So which means like somewhere on the order of 10 billion humanoid robots, maybe 20 or 30. And
he thinks Tesla's going to have 10%.
Okay, well, let's say. You know, you kind of make, let's say the build rate is, I think the build rate will be probably something ultimately like 1 billion a year, humanoid robots, like actually. And if Tesla just has a 10% share of that, and it might be a lot more than 10%, and there's, you know, we make like 100 million Optimus units a year. I mean, for reference, the auto industry is roughly 100 million vehicles per year. So that, you know, sort of similar ballpark, at least within an order of magnitude. And I think we could make one for a cost of maybe at really high scale of about $10,000. It's smaller. It'd be less expensive than a car. So, and I think if you sell for $20,000 or something, this is at large scale volume. Tesla would basically make about $1 trillion of profit a year from that. So, yeah.
That's what's going to save his company.
That's what's going to save his company.
Yeah.
Meaning, without that, do you think Tesla's in bad shape?
EVs aren't the future.
Why not?
The infrastructure isn't there. It's not going to be there. The batteries are mostly mined from forced child labor in Africa. Imagine some rebels taking over some of these mines and taking control of these mines in Africa and holding the world hostage. It's just so much that can go wrong with that. It's really on a clock. It's really on a time clock. It's a ticking time bomb. And then, you know, when they're used up, they're more toxic for the environment than a standard block engine. And then, you know, the time frames it takes to charge them is outrageous. It's a security risk for women and men, but mostly for women as well. A lot of theft occurs around these things. I just think that the future definitely is hydrogen. Even solid-state hydrogen fuel cells said you recharge in 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops. You know, the military has ships now that run on hydrogen. They're able to extract the water from the sea, take out the hydrogen through electrolysis, push that into a combustion chamber, and use that for energy. Rolls-Royce is huge. That's why I've been investing huge in Rolls-Royce, because they have the Rolls-Royce jet engine now, which flies. They just flew one successfully. And their stock is doing very well, Rolls-Royce, because they're into hydrogen. My electric company here, yours too, FP&L, what are they powering us with right now? These lights are run by hydrogen right now, FP&L, Florida Power and Light, the electric company for the state of Florida. So hydrogen is the future. It's a clean burning energy source. The only side effect of the emission is steam, clean steam. And that's where things are going to go. And I think that we're going to get back towards hydrogen. The GM president, CEO, either one of the two, the woman that runs GM, she said we're getting away from the EVs. We're going to move everything to hydrogen. So that's where the future is going to stand. I think that if he doesn't come out with an H model, you know, I think Tesla's going to suffer. A lot of people are having some major issues with the with the cars. But this Optimus is going to save his company. It's going to make him a multi-trillionaire.
Does that at all worry you about us having robots? Or, you know, you see a society in the near future where we're walking in a mall and in the streets where, you know, where robots are walking right next to us and we're just kind of like, it's just a car. It's not a big deal.
Right. I think that is definitely the future. I think that we as people have to find out how do we have some input on the way that the interface works. In other words, AI is going to take on the consciousness of the programmer. Now, if the programmer is not conscious, in other words, a programmer doesn't have a high level of thinking, empathy, if a program is racist, if the program is heavily in politics, if the program is prejudiced towards this or that idea or concept, that's going to end up inside of the program, the code, right? How do we put together some type of a plan or a process? I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing right now that we, the people, or some government authority looks over these things and to make sure that these inadequacies of human nature are not inside of these robots. There have to be some type of oversight, I think. I don't think you could just unleash them on the world with no oversight, but there needs to be something put in place. And then we have to also think about, is there ever going to be a robot Bill of Rights? Because are these things going to be so sentient that eventually they're going to say, hey, you guys are pushing me around, you're abusing me, I'm being overworked. Eventually in the future, there could be a need for a robotic Bill of Rights. All these things are going to come out, eventually in the future. Hopefully, eventually, I'm pretty optimistic that we'll find the right way. That we'll overcome all of these issues as mankind will rise up, and somehow we'll do what's right. I have to be optimistic. I can't think negative, but it's going to be a process, and we will see some situations where, like, humankind is like a baby. A baby takes a few steps and it falls. Well, we can't panic because we know the baby's going to pull itself back up and take a few more steps and maybe take 5 or 6 steps in, but it'll fall one more time until it learns how to do what walking is, learn how to control your fall. The definition of walking is a controlled fall.
The definition of walking is controlled fall. I love all this stuff you're saying, man. It's interesting listening to you, but I got a few things before we wrap up.
Okay.
So, do you think we're going to make it to the next 100 years or 1,000 years? Yuval Harari, who wrote the book Sapiens, and he is the guy next in line to be the guy running World Economic Forum, with Klaus Schwab. They call him the brains of Klaus Schwab. He's got a lot of interesting things to say, but he calls human beings useful eaters, useless eaters or useless class.
Yeah.
Do you think there will come a time where human beings will be useless?
No. And the reason why is because people like myself and you and others are fighting for humanity. See, one thing about the light and the darkness, light always wins. See, right now we're in a pretty well-lit room, right? If you shut these lights off, all I have to do is turn my camera phone on and the darkness will flee from that light. But I can't inject any darkness into this room and I have to make this room go dim. I can't inject darkness, but I can turn on a light and make darkness flee. And so I think that as a metaphor, I think that light always wins. And I think that, the work that I'm doing has a purpose. And many other thousands and now even probably tens of thousands like myself working to get mankind to see, hey, we need to take a look at ourselves. We need to go to inner space. We have to deprogram and reprogram ourselves. We have to learn how to love ourselves and forgive ourselves because nobody's coming to forgive you and nobody's coming to save you. We were sent here to save ourselves. And when we come to that realization and begin to see each other as everyone else as our brother and sister and love and empathy, then this world is going to change. And I believe that's going to happen because I believe there's enough people fighting. I believe that over time, there's going to be more and more. I've seen this thing go from me hiding in the bushes in the 70s, talking to 2 friends about what I saw in the sky, to going to, trading VHS tapes, to trading cassette tapes on things that are going on, to trading DVDs, to CDs, to forums, blogs. Now I'm on over 100 TV shows. I'm on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Science Channel. I'm on the Discovery Channel, Discovery Plus. I got my own TV network now. I'm on Gaia TV. I'm on everything. And I'm on your podcast now talking about these incredible topics that I couldn't talk about in the 70s. It's time. The time is now. We are the people. This is the era. And we're going to change a lot of minds in the next 10 to 15 years. A lot of people are going to wake up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, robots, they can work 24 hours a day. You and I, 8 hours, average person, hard worker, 12 to 14, killers, maybe 16, 18 hours and get 4 to 6 hours of sleep. But a robot can go 24/7 nonstop. And Neuralink, if Elon said to you, hey, Billy, you're a smart guy, you got photographic memory, you seem to, when you read information, you keep it pretty well, but I think I can take it to another level. If we put this Neuralink in, you'll know everything about everything. Would you say yes to it?
The Neuralink, I probably wouldn't do. Oh, hold on. 1 second. Neuralink I probably wouldn't do just because it's going to directly affect my mind. So I like the way my mind works right now. Now, if I had a deficiency that I could detect or somebody told me, look, you're deficient in this area, maybe I'll do it. But because my mind's working the way I like it, that's why I never tried ayahuasca, mushrooms, or nothing else, weed or anything, because I like the way my brain works.
So you wouldn't entertain it?
No. Not at all. One second.
You thought about it a little bit, though. You thought about it a little bit.
Oh, you have to think about it because it gives you the ability to masquerade as a god. It gives you a lot of power. Now, I think it's useful for a lot of people. There are millions, maybe even billions of people that can utilize that technology right now today. People that are suffering from disabilities that need that technology right now. People that can access and turn on their appliances in home if they have limited ability to use their limbs. There's so many applications for it. It's mind-blowing. Now, there is another device I would use. An MIT student invented one that sits on the bone of the back of your ear, and it transmits information directly into your mind from your bone, and it's connected to the internet. So somebody can ask you a question. You can ask it the question silently with your own thoughts, and then it will go search and query Google or AI for your answer and give it back to you through the bone. Now, that's something that doesn't directly interface with my mind. But my mind at this particular moment in time is working and functioning at a very high level. So
you don't want to touch it?
I don't want to touch it. That's why people say, how come you won't try this? How come you won't do that? I don't want to affect my file cabinet.
I get it. I mean, I guess the way it's kind of like, why take steroids if your body's producing a good amount of testosterone right now? Why feed it right now? But maybe in your 50s, 60s, 70s, if it's not, your testosterone drops below a certain level where it's actually not good for you, your joints, you're always in pain. Maybe you ought to consider it. That's kind of your process very logically in a reasonable way. Very interesting. Yeah. Last thing, why was Hitler, why were the Nazis so obsessed with Antarctica? Yeah. Why is it that they send this ship, what is it called? MS Schwabenland or Schwabenland, and they go out there and just absolutely curious. This is right after the pre or after the World War. Yeah. And then he goes out there and all of a sudden it gets so, everybody's talking about it to the point where U.S. sends 4,700 of our folks to go there to investigate, see what's going on. What was the obsession with Antarctica?
Well, Hitler had been looking into ancient documents, ancient texts, tablets, cylinder scrolls, papyruses from all around the world long before that happened. He had been sending his troops all around the world, even to Tibet, to talk to these wisdom keepers and sages about ancient knowledge of advanced technology. He already knew that there was an advanced civilization on Earth long before we got here. And he wanted to tap into that so that he can use that to reverse engineer it to take over the world. He was successful in creating a couple of Haunebu craft. He created Haunebu 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these were circular flying craft that had gun turrets on them. Haunebu, right? H-A-U-N, Haunebu, right? There goes one right there. They flew the first one in 1936. So you see, this is a long time ago. And there's actually an image, an old image that was put up online of one of these Haunebu on a test flight. It only made a quick hop, but it got off the ground. And also, they discovered that down here in Antarctica, there was an area there that supposedly some of these ancient people, that's an American one right there. All right, we created that one. But they found out that there's a hole inside of Antarctica, about a 30-meter wide opening, and that there were people there, these Aryan people, okay? So the whole thing behind the Aryan race thing wasn't about blonde hair and blue eyes specifically with him, because he didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. It was these people that were down there that did, and he wanted to access their knowledge because they had access to advanced technology according to what I researched. That's the Diglocka. The Diglocka was one of the machines he built based on this ancient text that was able to warp space and time. It was almost like a time machine. And this thing, when activated inside of what they call a henge, it actually disappeared and nobody knows where it went. Okay, crazy stuff. But, this technology he was working on, man, because he said that these people down in Antarctica had this knowledge. And he went down there to meet these people, supposedly. And much later, the U.S. sent troops down there, and they sent people down there. And one of the statements that came back from the general that went down there was that we have a new enemy, one that could fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. And he wasn't talking about the Nazis. He was talking about something else.
Why are we, I think right now only about 70 people, I don't know how many people live there right now.
Yeah.
Why isn't anybody interested today? Why is it such a smaller number today?
Well, there's a treaty. There's a peace treaty, number one. There are research bases in the same exact area where the Nazis...
I'm sorry, 4,000 people there. Yeah. 66 scientific bases in Antarctica, about 37 are occupied year-round, 4,000 people through summer, 1,000 over the winter.
Yeah. Those bases are research bases from all the countries on Earth. It's an area where there's no war allowed, even though there's security, there's armed security. A guy on my TV network named Brad Olson, he actually went down there and was granted access to the land in Antarctica. I have this on my TV network. It's called The Secrets of Antarctica. We have the footage and everything. Now, there's this base down there. These bases are researching something. Secrets of Antarctica, Brad Olson. And they're researching technology down there or something down there. They're all down there. Even the Rockefeller Foundation has a research base down there, too. Now, when Buzz Aldrin went down there a few years ago, he went to meet with whoever they were meeting with. And he didn't like what he heard and saw, and he tweeted something that was very scary. He said, "We're facing the ultimate evil." And then he was whisked out of Antarctica, and the tweet was deleted later, but it had been already screenshot by a lot of people, okay? A lot of people had already screenshotted it. And they said, oh, he has the flu. He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's something going on down there for this man to make a tweet like that. And then they hushed him up.
Was it really from his account?
It was from his account. They hushed him up and they whisked him away. He deleted it maybe a day or two later or whatever it was, but it was too late. Everybody had already screenshot the tweet.
Are you joking?
No, I'm dead serious. Yeah, you can look it up. Dead serious.
What?
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
What do you think it was?
I think maybe they've made contact with these people. I had a meeting with Major Ed Dames. Major Ed Dames, Project Stargate. Look it up. I had private classes with him on remote viewing. And in this second meeting that I met with him in Orlando, Florida, he told me that there are people still down there. And he said these people have the ability to come and go at will, and we can't stop them. That was his exact quote to me.
These people are not people. These people are aliens, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so that's what he was referencing.
Yeah.
Do you think we did land on the moon?
Yeah, I think we landed on the moon, and yes, we lied about it. The moon mission was a reconnaissance mission to go there and find out what the hell was up there, because we sent missions to the moon to orbit it prior to going to land on it, which is just standard procedure. And we discovered that there are, I think, a lot of anomalies, things that shouldn't be up there. And so I think the moon mission was a mission to go there, show the world a desolate, dry place, but in actuality, pick up some of this stuff and bring it back so we can find out what the heck it is. I researched the Clementine mission, and as soon as I heard Clementine, I knew it never came back. Oh, my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever. That was a top secret military satellite that went up there that's finally declassified. And in the Clementine mission images, which you can download over 2 or 3 gigs of, the dark side of the moon images are there. And in these images are things that shouldn't be there, anomalies, weird looking things that don't appear to be natural rock formations. Let me put it that way. And the mission never came back. It hit something and it collapsed up there, or it hit something and crashed right there on the dark side of the moon. I think they knew it was going to hit something. I think they hit it on purpose. But there's something really going on. If you know about the one mission with the Apollo, what got to the backside of the moon, they lost their comms. That's pretty standard because you have the moon blocking you from Earth, from Houston. But something hacked into their comms and they all went crazy. And that's also on the audio, the black box audio that anyone can listen to. They went crazy. Who's in our comms? What is this noise? You hear it? You hear it? It's like music. I hear it. They were panicking because something hacked into their comms when they got to the other side of the moon. There's a lot going on out here. We're just not being given all the facts.
Man, it is very, very interesting to listen to you. I got to tell you this, very, very interesting to listen to you. And more importantly, to see the amount of interest you have in all these topics. When is your birthday, by the way? What month is your birthday?
September 4th.
September 4th. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Pleasure having you on. We're going to put the link below to the book. Okay. Rob, make sure to put that below. Emerald Tablets. I can go on for a couple more hours talking to you, but I'm fascinated by you. Appreciate you once again for coming on, man. Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.